I say that? Well, listen to my teaching on the hexagram. Remember hex, being curse? Okay? Listen to that teaching, and you'll see it has nothing to do with me being anti-Semitic. Just pointing out facts. So he was also known as Mithras, the god of light. Both were celebrated during or shortly after the winter solstice, between the 17th and the 23rd of December. Now this was the pagan festival of Saturnalia in the Roman Catholic Church. To all the ancient pagan civilizations, December 25th was the birthday of the gods, the time of year when the days began to lengthen. Now, in other words, December 25th was actually considered the birth of the sun god. Okay? Tammuz being the first official sun god. Tammuz, Nimrod, Semiramis. Okay? So that's what it was celebrated as. Okay? It had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. And we're gonna look at when was Jesus born anyway, and it sure wasn't December 25th. Okay, we're gonna do a slight teaching on that because I think I have to clarify that point. I don't want to go down too many rabbit trails, but it's important. If somebody's listening to this, I want to try to cover the bases. I know I'm long-winded as it is, but we got to cover the bases here. So, to all ancient pagan civilizations, December 25th was the birthday of the gods, the time of year when the days began to lengthen and man was blessed with the regeneration of nature. See, they believed the days started to lengthen because their sacrifices were being appeased. They were so proud and arrogant to think that because they did human sacrifices and things like this, that now the sun was actually changing its course. How arrogant! Prideful! Well, pride goeth before a fall and haughty spirit before destruction. That's what the Bible says. Moreover, all of December 25th's Babylonian and Roman festivals were characterized by a 5 to 7 day celebration of unrestrained, promiscuous revelry and licentiousness. Debauchery. Okay? In order to make, that's why, talk about, the Bible says, woe to them that call good evil and evil good. Well, talk about calling good evil. I mean, you're taking something that's totally evil and now you're calling it good. But it doesn't matter how much you call something evil good. It's never going to be good in God's eyes. It's always going to be an abomination. In order to make Christianity palatable to the heathen, the Roman Catholic Church simply took Saturnalia, adopted it into Christianity, and then eventually many of the associated pagan symbols, forms, customs, and traditions were reinterpreted or Christianized in ways acceptable to those of the lukewarm Christian faith and practice. Well, hey, we can have our cake and eat it too now. We can be like pagans. When they have their holidays, we just kind of put a Christian veneer on them, and that way I can placate my conscience. I can have a little Brill Cream religion, a little dabble do ya. In fact, in 375 AD, the Church of Rome under Pope Julius I merely announced that the birth date of Christ had been discovered. Oh, I'm gonna take what a pope says. The Vicar of Christ. That's what they call themselves. You know what vicar means? Substitute. They should be the vicar of Satan. He's a substitute Satan on earth, embodied in human form. That's pretty much what the description of a pope is. So Pope Julius I merely announced that the birth date of Christ had been discovered to be September 25th. Again, a really accurate source there. And was accepted as such by the faithful. Oh, good. The festival of Saturnalia and the birthday of Mithras could now be celebrated as the birthday of Christ. Well, isn't that convenient? So when the Zeitgeist movie makes all these assertions that, oh, Christ was, they're basically saying Christ was born on December 25th, just like every other pagan deity. They don't have anything right. They're so far off base with so many of these things because they haven't done their homework. Why? Because it doesn't suit their agenda. It doesn't suit their agenda. Doesn't matter if their agenda is totally false. They're going to lie and do whatever it takes in order to convince you that they're telling the truth. So if we go further, the festival of Saturnalia and the birthday of Mithras can now be celebrated as the birthday of Christ. The pagans flocked into the Catholic places of worship because they were still able to worship their old gods, but merely under different names. It mattered not to them whether they worshiped the Egyptian goddess Mother and her child under the old names of Isis and Horus, or under the names of the Virgin Mary or the Christ child. It didn't matter to them. Either way, it was the same old religion. That's all they did. Paul says to turn from idols, not to rename them and Christianize them. Where does he say that? 1 Thessalonians 1, 8 through 10 and 5. 1 Thessalonians 5, 22 also. Roman Catholicism's Xmas Day is nothing but baptized paganism, having come along much too late to be part of the faith once delivered unto the saints. Now, was Jesus born on December 25th? Luke 1, 5 through 25 is the record of the angel's announcement to Zacchaeus that he and his wife Elizabeth would soon have a son, whom they would call John. Zechariah and Elizabeth were quite elderly. They had no children, and the angel gave them the wonderful news that they would have a son to be named John. Verses 23 and 24 tells us that when Zechariah finished his service in the temple, he returned home. This would have normally been in early June. Upon his return, Elizabeth became pregnant. Verse 26 then says that in her 6th month of pregnancy, in December, the angel Gabriel came to Mary to tell her that she was about to become pregnant with the Son of God. 9 months later would have been September. Now, I'm going to have all this up there. Okay, this little short teaching. We could go a lot further down this rabbit trail. What I'm trying to establish is that there is no way Jesus Christ could have been born on December 25th for many reasons. Okay, so again, reference Luke 1, 5 through 25, and you can get this PDF format. Now, let's go further. How else do we know that Jesus was not born in the winter? Well, Luke 2:8 speaks about the shepherds near Bethlehem who were in the fields, watching their flocks at night. Shepherds in that region did not keep their sheep out at night during the winter because it was too cold and sometimes even snowing. But they did keep them in the fields during the fall, after this end of the summer harvest. At that time, the sheep could eat the stalks of grain left over after the harvest, and they would then fertilize the ground prior to the late fall planting. Okay, so that's another way that we can prove that Jesus Christ wasn't born on December 21st. Third way, also Luke 2:1 says that when Mary was just about to give birth to Jesus, she and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem to fulfill their obligation to be counted in a Roman census. They did not travel in winter because it would have been much too hard. Rather, people traveled in the fall, and that's the time they would set the census up. Okay? Between the heat of summer and the cold of winter would make sense, doesn't it? And at that time of the year, the grain and some of the fruit that were ripe, travelers were allowed to eat some of the gleanings, according to Leviticus 23:22, as they passed by. So there would have been like food on the way. I mean, how much more reasonable can you get? So again, this would all line up that basically, most likely, Jesus was born around September. Okay, now again, we can't get super dogmatic, and the Bible will not give you an exact date, because just like God didn't emphasize the stars in Genesis that we talked about very much. He created them. It was like one line said he created them. He's not going to emphasize the birth date of Jesus as far as an actual date, because he knew what would happen. People would start worshiping and doing this and doing that, and he didn't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and end part 1 here, and we're going to go to part 2 right now. God bless you.